So welcome everybody. Welcome. Happy International Women's Day to all of you. Thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to thank women everywhere, all of y'all, for the good work you do to sustain the coffee industry and the work that we do, make it all possible for us to be here. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Amadis Gutierrez Ray. I'm the Director of Roasting for Joe Coffee Company, but I'm also the founder of the Women in Coffee Project. We've been around for a couple years now. I'm really honored to be with all of you here tonight. I'm going to introduce you in a moment to my co-host, Ruth Ann Church, but a quick note on some housekeeping before we get started, just because that's sort of what you have to do in some of these digital events. We encourage you to update your name on your Zoom box to include your pronouns. If you're not sure how to do that, the little on your individual box, you might notice 3 little dots or ellipses at the top of the right-hand corner. If you just click on that and click on rename, you can edit your name to include your pronouns. If you'd like to do that, it's not required. We just encourage you to do that. If you have questions throughout the event, we're super excited about that, actually. We hope that you guys will be really interested in engaging in the discussion. But throughout the first part of the panel, we encourage you to put your questions in the chat box. We will have a Q&A section at the end where we can ask the panelists those questions. But first, at the beginning, just feel free to put them in the chat box. We'll be able to come back to them later. And then the whole event will run for an hour and a half. For the first third of it, we're going to have a panel event with our amazing panelists. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a second. And then the second third, we're going to have a breakout groups so that we can have the opportunity to engage with some of this material. It's very relevant and pretty radically affecting every aspect of our work. So I encourage you to store up some energy to share, give back to the panelists, and also contribute back to the room if you'd like. And then after the whole event's done, an hour and a half, we'll stop recording and we're going to open it up to anyone who's interested in keeping the energy going or continuing to engage with the panelists. If they want to stick around, you're more than welcome to join. Ruth Ann and I thought it could be fun to have a happy hour component, kind of like the good old conference days when we were allowed to be in the same room. We can keep the conversation going after that if anyone is open to that. We welcome that. So now I'd like to introduce my co-host, Ruth Ann Church, founder and president of Artisan Coffee Imports. It was originally Ruth Ann's idea to host an event to celebrate today. And I really enjoyed collaborating with her to put this together and bring this to you all. She served on the board for the IWCA, the International Women's Coffee Alliance, a few years ago. We've met through our work at Joe, but also through the greater efforts for bringing awareness to gender equity. Ruth Ann now runs a company with a strong focus on gender equity in Rwanda. So I just wanted to introduce her and have her share a little bit with you guys about what we're doing to raise some funds for the IWCA through this event.
Yeah, thank you, Amaris. It's so great to be here, and thank you all of you for being here this evening or afternoon, whatever time it is. And I just want to briefly say that we are so grateful for those who have been able to make donations for the International Women's Coffee Alliance. I had heard that Claire Harriman, who is one of the great staff people at Roast Magazine, might join us. And she happens to also be on the board of the IWCA right now. I don't see her in the chat. Claire, you'll have to raise your hand if you really are there. Because if you are, I would have you give a shout out. But I think she would be wanting to express that it is a very volunteer and member-driven organization. They have 27 chapters now across the globe, and each chapter is in a different country. There are consuming countries that have chapters like Australia and Germany and now the US. And there are, of course, many producing countries that have chapters. And so by a donation to IWC Global, you're helping all 27 of those chapters in some way, shape, and form because of course, without a central body getting things done and hosting websites and running Instagrams and everything else, it just doesn't continue. So I think what I'm trying to do is send a big hug and a big thank you from hundreds of women, thousands of women perhaps across the globe who appreciate donations to support the International Women Coffee Alliance. I'll put their website in the chat in case anybody wants to take a look at that later. And we are leaving the donation screen open until, like, if you go back to the Eventbrite, you can still make a donation through Wednesday. I can't remember if I already said it, but we had already $725 donated earlier today when I checked. So thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome. So I'm gonna ask our panelists to introduce themselves, if that's all right, because I'd love to get started with the main discussion, which we're really excited to get into. Cydni, would you like to start? You're just next in my clockwise around my Zoom.
Hi, I am Cydni, and I am a coffee lover, and I identify as a woman, and it's one of my favorite boxes that I check, and I think that there's so much power that I've just been gifted randomly, and so I really appreciate that. And I host a podcast on Spreads Network, Ciera, spilling all the coffee tea, and I work in the quality department at Caravela Coffee. And I have been a barista. I'm a Glitter Cat barista alumni, and I will say that getting to know every spectrum of the coffee industry has really enlightened my eyes to how from seed to cup, women touch this and make this what it is. And our industry will only be more better and more sustainable if we continue to invest and support those hands. And so I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited you're here too. Furaha, would you like to go next? And please tell us how to pronounce your name properly. Oh, you're still on mute.
Wow. Is it fine now?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, no, okay, thank you. Thank you. So I'm Furaha. I am founder and chairperson of Kivubelt Coffee in Rwanda. We are producers, so we are at the origin, and it's been 10 years that I'm into this coffee industry. So we have three farms on the shore of Lake Kivu in the Western Province, and we work with also smallholder farmers, approximately 500 family. And within the company, we have 100 worker every day. So I am very happy to be, present here with you, and I'm very excited to exchange idea and to see how we can improve or how we can be more inclusive within our industry, because I think it's been 10 years, and most of the time I was with men. It's good to have this kind of conversation now, and I think the future is it's brighter. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm waiting for everyone's contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you didn't mention too, you're calling in from Kigali, right? So you're
yes, yeah. This is we are going into the early morning.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah,
We appreciate
it
it so much.
yeah, yeah.
So our third panelist, I'm not sure if she's here. Ciera, are you here? I feel like I may have seen you, but you might have had some technical difficulties. If not, okay, we may ask Ciera to jump in when she joins, and she can introduce herself then as well. But to get us started, so the event itself was inspired by an amazing talk that Phyllis Johnson gave as a keynote speech in Kigali a couple of years ago, and I believe Phyllis is here. So we're hopefully it's not too awkward, Phyllis, but we're going to show a quick clip from that speech. So I hope it's not too weird for you to see a clip of yourself.
Amaris,
Yes,
should
yes.
we offer to let Phyllis give a short introduction?
Oh, of course. Actually, yeah, I didn't want to ask you to do any work because I feel like you do so much already, Phyllis. But would
you may decline if you'd like to, Phyllis.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Amaris. Thank you, Ruth Ann, and thank you everyone who's on here. I apologize for you having to listen to this speech. I have not listened to it. It's hard for me to hear my own voice. You guys, some of you can relate to that. And then especially when you hear it, you're just like, why did you say it that way? So it's just little stuff. But the heart of the speech I wrote, it has, and just trying to think back, what was I thinking when I wrote the speech? I was honored that I was asked to speak. You know, I did not take that request lightly. So I put a lot of time and effort and called on my good friend Margaret Swallow, who's my editor and in chief, to take a look at it. So I hope there's something in it for you. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for having me, and thank you for seeing my speech as worthy as something to discuss.
No, thank you so much. You've done so much for us and primed the conversation already. So yeah, I'm gonna share, so we have a couple of clips just in case any of you were not able to see the speech ahead of time, but I believe Ruth Ann's gonna link to it in the chat if anyone hasn't seen it, but it's also on the Eventbrite if you wanted to revisit that at any point. Okay. So I'm gonna share this. Oop. Okay. Was everyone able to hear that properly? Okay, great. I just don't trust myself sometimes with technology. That's great. Okay, so the question that I'd like to start with for our panelists and to get the conversation started is to ask what resonates with you about Phyllis's comments about gender and the girl Ganika who paints a picture of inclusivity. Or if there are any other elements from that clip that you'd like to highlight or share about maybe some of your impressions.
I can go first if someone. So I nanny many people who do coffee, moonlight, and do other things. And what I've noticed is that these dynamics that we've set up and we've accepted on like who understands what and what is a girl thing to do and what is a guy thing to do are completely irrelevant to children until we make it relevant to them. And so I think it's very real that, someone so young and without the extra baggage that we've picked up by just being alive gets to the heart of the matter, that it's about people and it's about recognizing the differences. And I've noticed that children have an eye for quality and they have an eye for feelings and they express it. And that's some of the things that we lose when we learn to behave and grow up. And so you see that a lot with women who have really been taught and conditioned to behave, because our society, many of our societies need that from us to behave in a certain way, to fill these roles that are so integral to society, but are almost inherently devalued, or like, this is what you do, not like this is learned. And so I think that it's really good to kind of like unpack all of that and extract all of that mess and recognize that to the core of us as human beings, regardless of gender identity and origin and ethnicity, there's certain truths that we understand if we allow ourselves to.
Yeah, especially coming off, I always feel this time of year, March 8th for International Women's Day, is coming after Black History Month and, coming into Women's History Month. And yet, if you were a Black woman in Black History Month, you didn't stop being a woman for that month. All of your identity is present the entire time. And I do think children have the capacity of seeing that so easily. It's not something that they're aware of, these kinds of boxes that we've invented to separate things out or compartmentalize. And I think that is a pretty valuable thing to learn from them.
I can add something, about Ganika. I think also the family, she probably comes from a family that is already inclusive. She's only 6, so it means she just started school. So most of the things she knows, it's probably from home. So education at home is also very important. The way we educate people, our children, not put them in boxes and say, yeah, the girls, they do this, boy do this. And it shows that she has a good start in life because she was already exposed to inclusivity already. She was able to understand at that young age that people work together, and she draw different kind of people. So this is something that maybe if we are in a position, to decide, to be aware of not putting people in boxes, so that they can develop the full potential. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful thing to remember too, like the family dynamic, and like that there are a lot of people who contribute. I mean, she's already involved in this coffee world, she's positioned in it and her family's positioned in it. And it is sort of a group, like a community effort. And I think that she is a product of that. She can see so clearly it's not just one person's, work. It's everybody's connected. So, I mean, she already sees this. I have another question listed, but it sort of feels like Annika already answered it. But my next question is, where in the coffee industry do you think we see the intersection of race and gender, which is sort of maybe a little rhetorical, but yeah, I think Annika very easily and quickly saw it and pointed it out. But I wondered if you have thought about this yourself, like how we maybe see and talk about this. I think that's also maybe something that I like to think about. Like, it isn't that we're not aware, but how do we talk about it in the industry, and how do we express that value if we value it? If that makes sense. What do you think, Cydni?
So I was watching a panel maybe Friday with the Coffee Equity Coalition, and I think I got that wrong, but it was talking about the visuals of, you see the coffee pictures that we see as consumers and on the side of the coffee chain, and putting it as a juxtaposition against the pictures that you would see of enslaved people who were, smiling and picking cotton and stuff like that. And what I've noticed is that because many of the folks on the production side of it are not Western, I'll say Western because I'm included in this on a certain aspect of it. Like, we write in the narratives. And so we take these pictures and we are observing, but we're like gawking, and it's like a very like weird kind of intrusive touch that we put in, and we devalue what is really happening and the intelligence and the excellence that is required for this to be sustainable, because I can barely keep a succulent alive, much less like an entire industry. And so, like, as a Western person and as a Black woman, and, I realize that a lot of times I find myself being passed a mic or being like to speak to narratives that I have no right to speak to because it's not my lived experience. And in the same conversation, that it is so much a part of my story that I can recognize where, like, we need to give space to those narratives, because it's just like, we're just a couple of decades away from each other. And so, like, I really I value stuff like this, where you have people on different sides, and Western versus the rest of the world, because, some of the things that we're just getting to know, like, are just commonplace. And so everywhere else. And so I really appreciate hearing from people on the production side, because we assume that we have something to teach all the time. And most of the time we have stuff to learn. And a lot of that is race and gender too, but like race specifically, and then origin.
Yeah, I think especially over the past year, we've learned that we're not listening properly. And I think that's at the maybe the heart of what you were talking about, that it isn't so much like what we're saying, it's that we're saying and we're speaking, and we should be listening. And active listening is a pretty hard thing to do. Furaha, do you have any comments?
Yes, because I am African, but I was educated in the West. So when I was studying, I was coming back home and see, how, Rwanda just came out of war and the genocide. But then situations start to be better and better. So coming here, I realized that having the Western education and being raised in Africa, so I have something to bring on the table. So with my education, I was studying in Switzerland back then. So I could with my education, I could choose a career in Switzerland and then just, live my life. But then I realized, actually, the origin, it's back then I wasn't in coffee, but I realized that I have more to give in Rwanda than in Switzerland, for example. And that's why I got into coffee. I could go into trade or something like that, but I went into coffee working with farmers, agriculture, because I have more impact in Rwanda than in Switzerland. And being a woman, when I started, no one took me seriously, Well, no one took me seriously. They thought that maybe, I was bored or something like that. So it was a challenge to start something. And I don't come, my background is not in farming at all. So all my family, I live in cities, town. I've never lived on a farm. So people didn't really understand why I want to start something like that from scratch. So, but then again, I had my idea and I just work. And now people respect that, so we have to show what we are capable of too, so that the conversation can change, because we are taught that women do this, men do that, and if you are a city girl, it's difficult for people to take you seriously when you go into farming. But with our action, I think you can change people's minds. I don't focus really into, the theory is very good, but practice is more important. You have to show people, and then when they show what you are capable of, I think conversations start to change. And we have also to act, to take action, to participate in the process. And I think it's important to show more than to speak, so that your action, what your work talk for you, so that it helps, for people to understand that a woman is capable of doing, something that a man can do. Because especially for me, it's not a family business in a way that my husband is, of course he's helping, but he's never with me, for example. So I was the one going to talk to people. I was the one going to hire people. So after, when you show them, I think it's also changed the conversation. And being raised in Africa and went to Europe, so my background is a little bit different, because I grew up with a mother who was very active. So I never have in my mind that I'm not able to do anything. So I wasn't raised like that. I was raised exactly like my brothers. So I didn't have any barrier in my mind that my brothers are better than me. No. So the family background, the education background didn't give me any barrier in my mind that I couldn't do anything. No. For me, I just went there, and then if I fail, I fail. If I succeed, I succeed. But I didn't really think about me being a woman. Really, I still do now too. Yeah, but I think it helps too, especially when you face challenges. If your mind is free, I think it helps, and people get you better, maybe. I don't know.
Yes, Margaret. So Margaret Swallow posted in the chat that you're speaking to the power of role models. And I was thinking the same thing, that you're probably now setting the stage for women to come after you to have a little bit less to prove. So you're a role model, and your actions can have many positive ripple effects. And I think that's very true. I agree with you, Margaret. It also speaks to the values of your family. You know, it sounds like your mother was also a role model to you in that sense, that maybe she inspired you to not think of yourself with any limits. And I think that's very powerful for any young person, you know, regardless of who they are. And obviously it's carried you through. I can feel your energy, even though we've never met in person. I can feel it all the way over here. And I think that is a powerful testament to your work, that you derive the meaning from the work and you propel yourself forward. I think that's pretty powerful. So I have a couple more questions, but it relates to one more clip. Phyllis, we'll just put you through one more clip of yourself. It's a little bit shorter, so I'm going to share that with you now, and then ask you guys what you think about it.
Ten years ago, I had the pleasure of doing work within Africa with Women in Coffee. This work was ran.
It's the last one. Whoops, sorry. So sorry. This is why I didn't trust myself, everyone. You thought I was doing so great.
Don't worry, it's all good.
Okay. Oh wait, no, this is still not the right one. Oh boy. Oh, you know what? I think I have the same one for both. Hang on one second, guys.
They have the same.
They have the same name, which is really, really bizarre.
Same URL. But there are actually, I noticed they're the same URL, but they're actually two different clips. So you could start it and we'll just stop it if it's the same one.
Technical difficulties. Okay, we're going to try again. Here we go.
What about the price? I mean, is she really talking like this when the price is such as it is? And here's what I have to say. I'd like to offer a little bit of advice on how I think we need to deliver that extra value that's in the cup, that extra value that consumers are willing to pay for. The future of specialty coffee must be diverse and inclusive. And let me repeat that. The future of specialty coffee must be diverse and inclusive. We must not only create a space for everyone, we must create a space that allows everyone to contribute and thrive. You know, this could actually be the answer to this could actually be the pathway to creating greater equity in the supply chain.
Okay, so inclusivity, she mentions there. What do you think, if we were to have our task to take away from tonight, to vision together, to describe what that looks like, a more inclusive coffee future? What do you think that looks like? And everyone who's in the audience, we may be asking you this later too, so. Go ahead, Cydni. Oh. Go ahead, Cydni.
I think about this a lot, and I think about kind of what happens when this is a reality, and I think that inclusivity means that women in non-binary folks, folks from all different sides of the spectrum, whether it's gender identity or ethnicity, ethnic background, are not only representative in the narratives, but also representative in the profits, are representative in the education. There's so many studies that's been proven that like diverse educators makes learners be able to learn. And then when I mention the profits, which I know that that's not very, 2021 and we all want to have good vibes and stuff, but you can't pay your bills off of good vibes, and you can't like do these things off of good vibes. And so like that's something that a lot of times women are discouraged or shamed for, like talking about like money and like what you're gonna pay me and stuff like that. And I think what we've seen and we've reiterated is like when people are able to thrive off of their profession and they're able to like live with dignity, like it positively affects the next group of folks. I've had a strong mother, and I've had the benefit of having a strong mother and a strong dad who, love me and like love my brother. And so like, and I know that that's helped me when difficult times have come in my life, and or when I've been asked to speak for myself because I've been listened to, I've been able to speak. And so I think that inclusivity is not just the good vibes and like listening, but also like letting it be like letting the appreciation mean something, and investing in the dignity from seed to cup, from producers to baristas, beyond. And I think that that's what that looks like.
What do you think, Furaha, from your perspective in Rwanda? Or just the industry in general?
In Rwanda, what I can in Rwanda, we are a little bit lucky in that matter. With the leadership that we have had for the last 25 years, we are truly equal. For example, in our parliament, we have 64%. So the majority are women. And I am the founder of a company in the men industry, but everybody accepts that, So the mindset in Rwanda is really, really changing. So, but we still have issues. We still have issues because we are expected to be working as a women, but we are also expected to be mothers, daughters, and to fix all the problem at home. We still have this mixed, thing that are expected from us. But to be, it's here. It's really truly inclusive in terms of gender. I can say that, really, to be honest. And even in the company, my manager, she's a woman, and everybody find it normal. So so Rwanda is lucky in that prospect, you say. But it's not always like that. When I travel, for example, when I go to coffee shop, so I see something else. So if we want to change the industry, so we have to be a little bit more like Rwanda, in my opinion. We have to be a little bit, Rwanda. When you come to Rwanda, you realize that everywhere you go, you find men and women working together, and we have women in position of making decision by themselves. Most of my friends, they are like, director, and it's really liberating too. People take us seriously over here. But I want to see it also when I travel, when I go to coffee shop. Of course you have women, but in position of making decision, it's less. It's less. People who make decision, it's mostly men. That's what I see. And So maybe, you know, we have to be at the table for that. Yeah, so that we can change things.
Yeah, so visibility, like representation.
Visible, yeah, it's very important. Yeah.
And also not just for like not just having, you know, being given a corner at the table, but being able to have access to the decision making and having access to the that power of, like, you know, making change. That way it doesn't feel like it's just for show. I agree. It also sounds like you know, adequate compensation for the same work, or better work, if I can say it. I'm a little biased. But yeah, proper compensation, because yeah, someone in the chat wrote that in a capitalist country, we show what we value by what we pay for. And Nicole Hannah Jones said that. Thanks, Chris, for sharing that. That is very powerful. I do think that's very true, because you know, the value, if we're talking about value, you know, that does often equate to you know, what people think it costs. And I think we should show that it costs a lot and pay for it appropriately. A question that I think fits in well here in the chat from Christy for you, Furaha, but do you think the greater gender equality in Rwanda translates into pay equity? Do you think women are being paid equally to their male counterparts?
Absolutely, you know, it's for the same work, because I have a company, so we don't see if it's a man or a woman. We see the productivity, we see what they are bringing, you know, the skills. So we pay everybody the same. So there is no disparity in how we pay people, and it's everywhere. That's why I say it has to be a little bit like Rwanda, because yeah, we pay a person, we don't pay a man or woman, you know, and
So
we
the work
pay
getting
for,
done.
yes, exactly, you know, if they are competent, they have skills, yeah, we pay according to that.
I think that representation is also key, because, you know, if you see that even your entire government values that amount of women in those seats of power, that's a strong message, I think, to every industry, every sector. It trickles, like, you know, it goes and has a ripple effect, that that value is very, very seen. We do need to be a little bit more like Rwanda, especially in political office. So I guess then maybe before we shift to a more group discussion, my last question, and maybe this is something that can carry us over, is like, you know, getting a little more like detail oriented, maybe on like a more granular level. How do you think we can accomplish this? How can we write a new inclusive history of coffee that includes racial equity with gender equity and vice versa? Do you think there are actionable things we can talk about today, besides what you mentioned, you know, paying women appropriately for their work, you know, trying to find ways to have them have access to decision-making roles? And, you know, if you're the owner of a company, you're in a position to promote, to do that. If you're not, though, what are some ways do you think we can do that? That's a big one. But Cindy's, I can see your Cydni's, your little wheels are going.
So I think you kind of put the nail in the head. I think that's the phrasing. But like when you are in the position of power, you can make those decisions. And so like one of the things we can do is, as we distribute the profits, not to get like too like, you know, in the ethers, but like investing in supporting for those seats to be filled and for people to be in those positions of power. I also think like recognizing when you're working within, like, from the American standpoint, because I've been able to accumulate some friends that aren't from America. And so like when we talk about race and we talk about gender, they're not understanding really like the hurdles we're jumping over, because our society is just so shaped by these archaic ideals, and we're committed to it and we will fight for it. And so like, because we feel like our dreams are reliant upon like the family unit and someone being at home and someone doing that and Black people doing this and non-Black people doing that. And so like, that's a day-to-day thing for us. And in other places, it's not. And so like when we have that from our standpoint over here, like you have to actively jump over those things and then make room for other people to jump over those things and maybe make it a little bit easier to get over it with a little less effort. And so that means like not making decisions off of scarcity, like passing the mic, the mutual aid funds that were happening last year and hopefully continue to happen, investing in people and investing in education. When you have something, a service, volunteering that service, being real service oriented, and recognizing that the greatest way that we can impact the world is to give, and not in the ways that we've been told we have to, but like in the ways where we feel inspired to. And so I think that recognizing that the game plan is going to be a little bit different for every lived experience in every country and every neighborhood and every whatever, but also knowing that it's going to be us giving and then others giving, like the folks that may not be represented on this call, that traditionally have power, they need to give some of that up. And it sucks, but that's what we got to do, and it's okay, because it makes the world a better place. There's so many studies that show that educating women and girls makes the entire villages and entire countries better for decades. So I think that's where it goes. Like, people need to invest in us.
Yes. Furaha, what do you think? Oh,
So yeah,
you're still muted. Oh yeah.
no, I agree with Cydni. Is this Cindy? Cydni? Yes, I agree with her. So we have to educate. We have to put more effort in training, more effort in education at all level, but also we have also to be participants. We have to be also more proactive, because sometimes women, we tend, to let men decide, or, do the hard work, or we tend to be a little bit shy. Yeah. But yeah, so we have to be also very active participants, and if we have to volunteer, or, to put out the effort as women, because the change won't come from people who don't have the experience that we have. We have to be part of the solution too. In everything we do, if we ask for something, we have, as I say at the beginning, we have to be also fully participant into the process. Not waiting for people to give us the rights, for example. We have to be also included in the process, to participate in the process of changing things.
Yeah, I think it was Shirley Chisholm who said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, just bring your own folding chair. So you have to kind of like take responsibility. I do think women are actually quite good at that. So it sounds like you're saying, to be present and be active, like any bit of power that you have to devote to investigating that and kind of working against any kind of pre-existing like white serving power structures. I think that's sort of a call to action for people who are in a position of power in their organizations. And then there, anyone who isn't, I think the work is still there to be done. I think it's inspirational. Starting your own company is a strong suit to follow, Furaha. So I think it's important, yeah, keeping the work central. And maybe also, like, if you question your own agency, start asking questions. I think asking questions often prompts conversations, and especially people who are not able to see that they even have blind spots, it might be like, you know, the thing that starts the snowball. So I'm going to invite now all of you to join the conversation with our panelists. We have a section planned for the breakout rooms. Some people may be a little nervous of breakout rooms, but I promise this is just our way to try to bring the conversation more, to ask you to have some ownership in the conversation and agency in the conversation, and carry over some of the energy from our panelists into your own homes and roles and lives, so you can have something to take away afterward. So in the breakout rooms, I'm going to set those up in a quick second, but just so you know what's going on, looking at the clock, we've got about 15 minutes to have a discussion with each other. And the panelists will be in the breakout rooms, and our moderators, so there'll be two breakout room moderators, and I didn't get to introduce her earlier, but I want to introduce her now. Some from Coffee Project New York, who's an amazing proponent of gender equity and has done some really wonderful things for the community of New York City, for all of us. So I'm really grateful to her for being here. And also last year, exactly a year ago, the last in-person event I ever did before the pandemic was a really wonderful screening of the Gender and Coffee documentary at Coffee Project at their SCA training campus with some, and that was a really wonderful experience. So I'm really glad some got to come back around. Maybe we can make this a yearly thing and all do this together. But so some will be moderating one breakout room, and Ruth Ann will be moderating the other, and they've got some questions to help get the conversation going. Participate as you feel comfortable, and we'll come back in about 15, and I'll give you a little heads up also when the breakout rooms or when that time is done, so don't feel like you've got to cram it all in. I'll give you a 2-minute warning so you can start wrapping up. Okay. Okay.
I want to make sure, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm, first of all, everyone who is here, I apologize for being late. Oh my gosh.
Have we got Cydni?
No, Ciera, where are you?
This is Ciera from Mama's Brew Coffee. My apologies, guys.
Oh, you're here. Yay. I kept looking for you. I didn't find you. Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm so sorry, guys. Hi, everyone. I am here and present for the time that is left, and I hope that we can do this again. I would really like to do something like this again. Oh,
yes. You know, I'm so sorry, too. I actually realized, too, you're probably one of the few that are coming in from a different time zone. So I actually was
now I can
just texted you ahead of time. There you are.
Hi, guys. How are y'all doing?
Oh, I'm so glad you're here.
Amaris, do we want to just give her a couple minutes?
Yes, of course. Yes.
What you were just making about starting your own company, I felt like,
yes,
perfect to comment on that.
Ciera, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. Hi, Ciera Young from Mama's Brew Coffee. Apologies to everyone here for being late. I am out of Houston, Texas, just an hour behind you guys, but literally broken refrigerator, trying to move things around, and like now I'm here. And I'm so upset with myself because the first question where you guys were talking about where race and gender kind of intersect right now, I was kind of weirded out by the answer that I wanted to give everybody, because I didn't know if it was going to go along with the cadence of where we were at, especially being International Women's Day. But I don't know if I have a chance to answer that really quickly from my point of view.
Yes, please. That is what I hoped you would do.
Okay, and I don't know if anyone spoke on this already, and I'm like, oh, but I had an aha moment, like really thinking about that this weekend, and thinking about like, in this day and age, for me, from my point of view, race and gender have had an intersection right at social media. Hear me out. I know within the Black and Brown community, within coffee, there have been so many of us out here who have been paving the way for years. But now, since with the advent of Facebook, MySpace, I'm going to tell my age a little bit, and Instagram, it made it possible for me to literally see what the epitome of representation meant. And for me, that's where both race and gender have intersected with social media. So seeing people like Full Body Sweet Finish and the Get You Some Gear project, seeing people like Michelle of Chocolate Barista, seeing people like Bart of Coffee Black, and just seeing, cuties in LA who really were some of the first people to reach out to me when I was still like doing this from the porch. I feel like with the advent of that, I've been able to see representation matters really matter. And I'm so happy to have platforms like Instagram. And that's how, I've met with you guys, with everyone here, you all. And I just feel like with the advent of that, it makes it feel like things are more obtainable. You get to see people like Samaya on the coffee farms, and knowing that I can do that too. I'm seeing more women who look like me in R&D. People are seeing more people like me who come from a quality control background look like me do it, and see that there's other areas of coffee that you can go into, and how the equity starts to come from some of the parts of coffee that you don't get to see. And I feel like social media has just made that arena so much more open for us to all see. So that was the main thing I wanted to say when this first started. But that's pretty much, yeah.
That is actually a really powerful comment. And I wonder, do you think, because I often feel, just speaking as a woman, and like my background is definitely not the same as all of yours, but do you think that there is, so I often feel like the minorities and the people who are on the marginalized edges of communities are often the ones that bear the most weight of like creating the inclusive spaces and the the communities that they want to see. Do you feel like social media has helped that alleviate the burden and has made it a little bit more possible for groups to come together that maybe wouldn't normally? Or do you feel that it might be similar?
It's still there, because even with the advent of social media, we're able to see more people that look like us or have that same story get into coffee. But one of the things that I'm hearing that sometimes kind of pulls at my heart is, and it's the same reason why I started Mama's Brew. Like, I've been in love with coffee forever and a day, but I never saw myself in it. And when I did move in those spaces, when I was first getting into specialty coffee, I realized that my business was started out of love, but then my business was started out of necessity. And in the beginning, it was a little sad to see that a lot of people who are on that marginalized line, we are starting businesses out of necessity. But I feel like social media now is helping people to not have to just start it out of necessity, because we don't see ourselves in those spaces. So yeah, at first it started out of necessity, but I feel like now with more people who look like us, it's making people see that this can be a first choice. This can be a field that you can go into. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's powerful too. It does also indicate that there's positive change that's happened maybe since you started your company, and that's good. It's heartening to hear. I think sometimes we have to take a little bit of hope where we can find it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And now, like, I don't feel like my business is out of necessity. Like, it may have started from there, but I'm so glad to see more women, specifically Black women, reach out to me and say, hey, I'm starting my own. I'm like, great, what do you need? It's helping me to network them instead of per se in the beginning. And this is just speaking from experience. I know that a lot of times when you start to see people get into an industry, sometimes they only let one of us make it, and I hate to use the old bread aisle analogy, but it is true. There's so many other brands that coexist together. I'm so happy that social media is helping, especially the Black community, get out of the headspace of thinking that only one or two of us can make it. Because I can count at least in 10 seconds, 10 brands that I know, coffee brands that I know that are on the shelves, but I probably can only think of maybe 2 or 3 that are actually Black owned. We're in a space now where we can change that. We're in a space now where I'm seeing more Black roasters. I'm seeing more coffee companies go towards a commercial side. I'm seeing more of my friends getting into the R&D. So it's just a beautiful thing to see right now. And I feel like we're intersecting right here at this social media platform, and it's giving more people that inspiration to get into this, more women to get into this. And it's pretty dope to see. Pretty dope.
Yeah, normalizing success for everybody. I think that's what, like, it's not competitive. I mean, the industry, there's tons of people who are working really hard in their roles. You can celebrate their work and their success, regardless. I think that's also really powerful.
Yeah, and not putting a specific look to what success is.
Right. Not
exactly, judging yourself on that scale, because everybody has their own form of success within this.
Yeah.
There is no standard. I mean, one of the things I love from like Michelle Obama, when she said like she's been to the palaces, she's been to these royal dinners and stuff, and she had came back to tell us that it's obtainable. And I feel like within even this industry, I've seen, working in commercial coffee and having £1 million weeks. I'm talking about like pushing out, 500,000 to £1 million of coffee a week. And I've seen these people who churn out these coffees, and I've been there, and I'm here to tell you, we all have space to operate within not just commercial, not just specialty, but quality coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also one of the things, I think, like competition, and I'm glad you brought that up too. That makes it really difficult for everyone to be seen, and I think that's also one of the nature of like the capitalist, value system that we operate within. Like one of our participants, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, mentioned with that quote earlier about like how capitalism determines how we, value, how we pay, like we pay for what we value. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important too, to break down some of those like hyper competitive norms.
Yes. Very, very true. Because once you see more people who either look like you or subscribe to kind of like your same standard of living, and you see that they're doing it their own way, that's one of the ways to fight against that. We all have room in our own lanes, in our own narratives, to be successful. And it's just great to see it. And even with a lot of the amazing people who are on this panel, just seeing them do their thing their way unapologetically, that's success to me.
Yeah, Furaha mentioned that actually in an earlier comment. She said that, you just have to keep the work going, do it. Well, I brought up the Shirley Chisholm quote about just bring your own seat to the table.
And that, that's my favorite. Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah. But I didn't want to be, I'm sorry I'm so late, and it feels like I just had so much to say, but it's just, I just wanted to hear from everybody here. It's just, this is an amazing panel. It really is.
You're perfect. I actually think, and I hope Ruth Ann won't disagree, but I think, so we had a couple of questions for the breakout rooms. I might actually see if anyone, I think I might maybe leave it open for everyone who's here right now, and just like ask the questions to the group, and anyone, including you panelists, can contribute, because I think the discussion might serve us all, keeping it together, and that way also all of us can benefit from your time and you being here, Ciera. But that way we can maybe turn it around. Is that okay with you, Ruth Ann?
Yeah, especially if you let me ask my question that I came up with during some of the earlier comments.
Oh yes, I saw that question of yours. Yes, go ahead. I'm actually gonna maybe pin you and sum up here. That way maybe you can also help guide the conversation.
Okay, yeah, well, and why don't we encourage everyone else who has a question, put it in the chat.
Yes.
And we'll do our best to get through them in the time we have. Yeah. So my question is, dear panelists, are you advocates of trainings in the workplace, for example, requiring anti-racism or anti-bias training of employees, including and maybe most especially executives in a company?
Yes. I was gonna say I saw both. Well, Cydni, I could see like your invisible antenna go up, and Ciera actually also raised her hand. Either of y'all go right ahead.
Yes, but done with intentionality. Like I'm 4'11 and a half. I can't train you on how to live in this world as a tall person. Okay. And so like, and if you don't have someone that can represent the variety of identities that we have, this is a great time to like maybe invest in people. And it doesn't always have to be like, people think like, oh, like I'm a small company and I don't have like a lot of extra money, you know, to do that. But I can't speak for a lot of people, and I don't want to like dehumanize myself and saying like I'm pretty easy. Like if you just respect that like I know something, you know, and like do your best and you're honest with me and you're not trying to take advantage of me, like you could just be like, hey, Cydni, like what do you think? Or like, hey, you know, we can pick our brains. And then if we go into this with respect, then that's something that can happen. But I am an advocate of educating, or there are countless of resources online where it's like, hey, we're all going to read this and we're going to talk about this, or, you know, hey, we're all going to check in. And so like, I'm 150% for like educating, because I think that that's what the future is made of, but just do it with intentionality.
Ciera, are you holding something? You're like, oh, you're on mute. Or no, you're gonna pass.
Yeah, I agree again with Cydni, and I do it also with my company. Sometimes we have a position, and I actively tell them that this time I want a woman, or this time I want a girl, so that it's actively done, because I am in that position to to ask for something that I want to see. Like I remember a few years back, we have to train our people in pruning. So when I went on the farm, all the staff were only men. So I asked them, why are you only men? We need to train people for pruning, and I need women to do that too, to know how to prune a tree. So at first they were like, oh, no, this is a man job. I said, no, I'm doing a man job too. So, and I told them to go look for, the women who are working on the farm at picking or doing other thing that, because pruning was a new skill for our farmers. And I wanted girls and women to know how to prune a tree, because we were educating the farmers at a new skills, and you have to do that. So it's very important to be proactive too. That's what I mean when I say to be proactive.
Did they respond well to you asking that of them?
Sometimes I don't give them a choice, but so, because at the end of the day, I am the one who is responsible for everybody. So when there is a situation that I want to see a change, I am in a position to bring that change. So sometimes they are not very happy, but they do it anyway. So, and they appreciate after a while, because some of them are really very good at doing what the men do. With the capping is the same. With all the operation that we do, we have to have a mixed team. You can't just have women for something or men for other things. You have to have to create a culture where it's the person that has to be seen, no, not the gender. Yeah.
I like to piggyback off of that. One thing, I'm not opposed to that type of training, but one thing with working in such a large scale coffee, the one thing that I learned is that through education, those type of practices are diminished. So when my coworkers and I are on like the same page in regards to the certifications, the proper training and cupping and stuff. Once I started to see those trainings and those things be emphasized, a lot of those issues were leveled out, because I felt like after a while, it looked like we were all on the same level playing field, because we're all given the same knowledge. So whether it's from the HACCP training or Q graders training, jobs instill that type of investment into their workers, letting them know that they are their education and their knowledge of this is important. I felt like that created a better culture than saying like, hey guys, we got to do this racial, training over here. And my job took more of the approach of education and making sure that we all were instilled with the same knowledge, and it created lesser of a hierarchy type of situation. So I'm more pro education to diminish those problems. Yes,
skills education as opposed to social.
Yes, because one of the things that helped me, and just transparency, one of the things that helped me to get over that fear of like that imposter syndrome is instilling myself with the proper education. And it helped me to kind of understand that if I did come into contact with a situation that had to get human resources involved, it didn't make me feel inferior to whatever situation I was going on with, because I was like, I know the same thing as this person, we do the same thing. So whatever this issue is, now we can go try and work this out. So I'm more pro skills and education as opposed to just like making this the blueprint or the bullet point, like, hey guys, this is how you don't be racist or sexist at work. I want to lean more towards the education. That's it.
No, that's good. That also piggybacks off what you said earlier, Cydni, about like just investing in women. I mean, and everybody, but like, that way the playing field is a lot more equitable. Yeah, especially when it comes to like the expectations.
I was trying to think of it from the investment point. If I'm going to grow my budget to try to address equities in the workplace, what types of training should I think about investing in? And so I think all of your comments just now have really helped me think about that.
That made me think about when I first was a manager and I was like young, and I was younger than a couple of people and I was having these conflicts, and I'm like, I know what, like I'm a very like, I don't like the bad vibes. And so like, I'm a very like efficient, like I'm not going to baby you kind of mindset, or that's what I thought. And so my mom, who's done management, I'm like talking to my mom and I'm like stressed out. And she's like, like you're taking on the job that their mothers should have done or their parents should have done. You need to set expectations, make sure they can fulfill the expectations. And when they don't, then you handle your business. And I think that just like speaks to what Ciera is saying, and what, I don't want to say your name wrong, but Furaha has been saying this entire time. And it's like, you need to take ownership of the work, and then all this other stuff will level itself out. Like we're getting in on something, like them being good people, it doesn't really matter to us, but did you do the job right and facilitate other people doing the job right? And I think that's enlightening, because I lend to want to be like, let's train and let's make sure you don't do this. But like, ultimately, I didn't even think about it. But like training on the skill sets where it's like on paper, we're the same. So why are you acting different with me? And
it's setting the professional expectation. Like that's, yeah.
And then that's an easy way to make the world a better place, because now like I'm trying to even the playing field, so I'm going to invest in this Q grader class with you. I'm going to do this with you, because we're going to even the playing field, and then we'll see what's good.
So this actually lends me to one of the questions we were going to originally ask the breakout room. Also, please feel free to join in if you also have questions, or if you have questions, or if you also want to answer it yourself. I actually would love to hear your perspective.
I want to correct something. I didn't look for a trainer, female trainer. It was for my employees, that a team of men and women. It was the education for the employees. So the trainer was a man who came to educate my employees. So just a small correction.
Thank you. But you wanted to provide the same opportunity to access that training to your whole staff. Yeah. Okay. So the talking about like how to serve people, then this leads me to one of the, I think like to me, one of the most actionable questions for my work life. But what are ways we can, what are things we can do to find out who really is in our community in order to serve them? If we're thinking about specialty coffee or companies that serve a greater audience, or how do we find out who we're actually meant to serve? And this maybe goes back to some of the listening comments that you're making earlier, Cydni, but Ciera already has an answer. I can feel it.
No, if Cydni, please chime in, because I was like, I'm late, so I'm trying to make sure I make up for it. But hire the people of the community. Simple. Hire the people in the community, because one of the things I do notice when I do see shops pop up, and living in Houston, we are going through a major gentrification. And I'm even talking about of Acres Home, which is an historically Black neighborhood. And as I'm looking for property for warehouse space, my main goal is to hire people of the neighborhood. Because one of the things that I think that is overlooked in regards to when people ask that question is the sense of pride people get in things that are in their neighborhood, especially when they have a stake in it. You feel me? So that's one of the things, and that's one of the simplest things you can do. And that's usually when I hear that question, that's the first thing I say, because there's so many times where I walked in a shop and no one lives in that area code or knows anything about the surrounding area. So I just feel like that it's a simple thing to say, but I think it holds so much weight, and it'll show that people have pride in something that's actually in their neighborhood. Let the neighborhood grow with you. You know? But that's all I have to say about that one. But I feel like that's one of the main things that I feel like a lot of shops and a lot of companies, even outside of coffee, are missing. They go into neighborhoods and they're not of the neighborhood. They don't know the people that are surrounding them. So, yeah.
So I'd actually be curious to hear your perspective on that, because you are a business owner who owns locations in many different neighborhoods of New York City, which is wildly different from one corner of one borough to the other. Have you grappled with that question at all yourselves?
I did actually. So I have some notes that I write down. Like, in fact, this whole topic in the breakout room is actually super dear to me because it's very real as a business owner. Just like Ciera and also Cydni, we're like need to get to know the people in the community, and hiring people who are locally from that neighborhood is important. But at the same time, it is also really hard for me as a business owner sometimes. Just think about East Village. Like, gentrification is one thing. Who are the people who can afford to live in that neighborhood is also one thing that we're looking at. So when we try to hire people who are in the community, people who like show faces when you do an event, like we do so many events for New York itself, like be it like scholarships or anything like that. So these are the people who turn out. But the other side of the community that I was thinking to include is actually sometimes putting a face towards the story, or like having them included in like social media. So if you follow our social media, we emphasize a lot, or like giving credits to all the team member, because a lot of times things that I'm doing in Coffee Project, it is not my brain myself, you know, like there's so many people who's getting involved. And recently we started even thinking all the way back to producers. We started involving the people that we know from producers. So we started educating our own community, like, hey, the coffee that you're drinking is from this farmer. So we had this beautiful video that was sent to us from a trader. He helped to translate everything, and it was so powerful. So when you get to get the community together to do something and share a story. I think it is also attracting the rest of the community that felt a little left out, and they are a little bit more, they felt a little bit more welcoming, and they're more intrigued to join. So I'm representing this minority Asian community women business. So sometimes it also takes a lot of courage to go into a discussion like that, and therefore we try to make everyone around us be part of what we're doing so that we can have this little community that we have grow slightly bigger, and eventually, hopefully, we get to reach more people.
That goes back to Ganika from the very beginning, I think, and her vision of a community. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. We only have a few minutes left in like the official event time, but don't forget, I mean, I still welcome, anyone who's interested in staying after, like once the clock hits 6:30, I'll, end recording, but anyone who's interested in continuing the conversation is more than welcome, though I know probably many of you have other commitments in the rest of your lives. But I want to end by seeing if anyone has any questions from the audience. Oh, there's one in the chat.
There's a good one. Yeah, there's a good one about increasing demand of women-produced coffee and the emergence of women cooperatives that are being created globally.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if the question. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but do you guys have any thoughts or feelings about the rising visibility, maybe for market access for coffees produced by women, or anything like that related to your work?
I'd be interested, especially you, Furaha. Have you seen a lot of emphasis on women-grown coffee? Because there's quite a bit of it in Rwanda.
I'm going to be very honest about this. We have the Rwandan chapter. We had some projects, but maybe this year it's gonna be that we're gonna sell some coffee under women coffee as a chapter. But so far, no. And it's very frustrating because we go into meetings, we do marketing, but we don't see results. Really, it's very hard when we don't see results because, and at the beginning I was a little bit skeptical because, as I said before, I didn't go into this business to it's good if I can sell coffee as a woman, but for me it wasn't the the most important thing. I wanted to make a coffee that is a great coffee, and I want my product to be recognized as a great coffee. I don't want my coffee to be recognized as a woman coffee. If it's bad, I'm not interested in that. So for me, quality is very important. Very, very important. Being woman or no woman, it doesn't matter. The coffee has to speak for itself. So, but, so that's what I told also the women in the group, because sometimes company, we are in a chapter, but we don't have the same goals. We don't have the same goals. Some people want to sell just average coffee. Some people, they just want to sell. But for me, it wasn't about just selling. I wanted to sell a great coffee at a great price. And sometimes it's difficult to, to put all the goals together and to have the same voice and the same objectives. So I think now it's coming around. We have new members. I'm speaking for the Rwandan chapter here. So I see that things maybe this year is going to change. We have someone who is interested in buying women coffee this year. But even there, you know, some people complain, oh, the expectations are too high. I'm like, no, guys, this is our opportunity to do this. You know, no. So yeah, that's my point of view.
Can I
want to
piggyback on something Furaha is saying? I agree. I agree. I'm in awe of the women produced, women roasted, bagged and tagged coffee. I love it. But I also know that within my network, I work with some amazing people. Specifically, I work with some amazing Black men. I work with Equatorial Coffee Consultants. I work with my friend, Sensory Scientist, Keelan Bradley. And I'm also in connection with addicts, exporters. And I do love movement and the idea of a centrally woman-focused coffee. But I still feel like there's more to the story too. Like through our representation, especially being the owners and the ones who are doing the podcasts and stuff, I feel like that is amazing. And I also think that it is okay to have a centrally woman-based business, but I feel like we're still leaving so much out by just centrally focusing on that, especially if we're talking about where race and gender kind of intersect. Because we can be the leaders of these coffee companies, but there's still other people that are either of allyship or that are men that still want to be a part of this. And even knowing with, say like if you have a bag and you get the stamp of approval saying that you're a woman-owned company, I think that you have to be at around like 60% to actually get that notoriety of being a woman's owned company. But there's so many other people under that help it, that I don't want to leave them out as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that actually picks up on both Phyllis and Monsi on the chat are saying the same thing, that you know, it isn't just women, that women must be careful in how these coffees are marketed so that it has a real meaning on the ground and a return on the investment. So it must make sense locally, not in the Western world. And I totally agree. It's navigating both like expressions of gender in different places, which we may not have the cultural fluency to understand, but it also can be just, you know, a cultural dynamic that we have to be careful not to project our sense of what it is onto that going into it.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm in awe and just happy to see more women leading these companies and on these farms and learning those stories behind the coffee. And I feel like that those stories still can be told and they still can be something to share with your demographic. But per se, and I know for me personally, everything is not 100% women owned, but I just know like I am what represents this company. And that alone is powerful in itself as a woman.
I feel like I think what Phyllis is saying is like a big point. Like we are good people, and not saying that like there's scarcity and goodness, but not everyone is of the same mindset. And so it's more important for the value to be added to the communities than necessarily the value added to our marketing, because a lot of times like when we're on the Western end of it, like it only adds value to our marketing, and so our customers can purchase them so they can feel good, which is good to feel good about woman-owned coffee, but it not necessarily be best for the women there. And like I didn't know 64% of Rwandan government women, right? And so like we're very like tunnel vision, like America, my issues, and across the world has the same issues that we have. And I think that everyone has, but they're not necessarily the same issues. And so like, you know, even though I love those stories and I do search out those because I'm like not unbiased at all. I'm a woman, but like I just feel like we may want to be careful about marketing. We're gonna have like a bunch of people who are not women's women, and they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it cheap, or they won't buy it, and then they'll freeze it out of the market, and then it's just gonna be like not, yeah, it won't be good for folks, which is unfortunate. But knowing how the Western mind has been conditioned, so I don't want to like blame anyone, but how we've been conditioned over here. Yeah.
Well, I want to maybe pause for a moment because I actually don't want to stop the conversation. I want it to keep going, but I might pause real quick just to say, like, maybe this can be the end of the official capital O portion of the event. And thank everyone for being here and all of the work that you've done to help us raise so much great funds for International Women's Coffee Alliance, who is concerned with market visibility. And I know that a lot of folks and reps from IWCA are here, and I know this conversation is super important to their work. But just pause and thank everybody and thank our panelists for giving their time.
I don't know if we have Claire here, but
is Claire here? No, I'm not sure.
No, but Monsi is. I wonder if I should just say a word or two to thank everyone who's supporting IWCA, and then what do you think, Mara?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
just a
Monsi.
quick note to. Hi everyone, thank you. I'm glad I got to come in. I was a little late, but I'm super happy to support this. I registered myself, and thank you for everyone and for this project to kind of also be a fundraiser for IWCA. I really appreciate that. And on behalf of the board, I just want to say thank you, and also just extend the support. I think it's important to continue to support one another and each other's projects. And I know IWCA is, that's the mission at its core. So to kind of extend that back and, bring that forward. So thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you too for your great contributions to our conversation in the chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop recording, but then anyone who's welcome, who's interested in staying, please do. And those of you who have to go, we totally get it. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. Events like this are really not possible without the community that comes together to contribute and engage. And so many folks have engaged tonight, and I'm so impressed and inspired by that. Thank you so much.